calling all aspiring AWS solutions architects. This is the video you've been waiting for. If you have an AWS solutions architect interview coming up, you are not going to want to miss this video. A while back, I did this video right here, which focused on the solution architect interview at AWS, focusing specifically on the phone interview as well as the Amazon Loop interview. In this video, I'm going to go over specifically the Amazon leadership principles. And if you don't know what those are, and if you don't know why they're so important, you're definitely going to want to stick around for this video. Now, if you're new here, I'm Greg, the creator of Thoughtful Techie Cloud, and each week I create a video to help you navigate your AWS cloud and tech journey. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe right now. Okay, so the Amazon leadership principles are essentially the culture of Amazon written down as leadership principles. And if you have an interview coming up, especially the Amazon Loop interview, there's no way that I can see that if you do not understand what the Amazon leadership principles are and how to incorporate those in your interview process, it's going to be next to impossible to land the solution architect job. However, by watching this video, you're going to be able to be prepared, be confident, and put forth your best effort when you hit that Amazon Web Services interview. Now, there are several leadership principles here, which again, align to the Amazon culture. The Amazon culture is essential to your day-to-day life at Amazon and how you work with the company itself, as well as how you show up for your customers. This list right here, I literally received this laminated copy on day one when I joined AWS. And I had a copy of this exact list of Amazon leadership principles on my desk, and I refer to it often so that I can hold myself accountable to how I'm showing up every day, both at work and for my customers. And you'll find that these are very beneficial when you incorporate them in your personal life as well. So the questions that you're going to get on your Amazon interview, especially that Amazon Loop interview, are going to be cultural based. They're going to be STAR-based questions. STAR is S-T-A-R, stands for situation, task, action, and results. And I'm going to highlight some leadership principles that pop up from time to time, especially for the solution architect position. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to read the title of the Amazon leadership principle, then I'll go over a little bit of a description of this, and then I'll give you one example of a potential question that somebody may ask you that is aligned to this Amazon leadership principle. So we'll start out with the first one, customer obsession. For customer obsession, leaders start with the customer and work backwards. They work vigorously to earn and keep customer trust. Although leaders pay attention to competitors, they obsess over the customers. So a question you may get for this, and one key indicator that you're getting a STAR question, is most of the questions will kind of kick off with, tell me a time when. So maybe a question you would get for customer obsession would be, tell me a time when you had to communicate to a customer that the architecture they built did not align to AWS well-architected best practices. Now, at first you may feel as though, well, customer obsession, why would I want to tell my customer that their architecture doesn't align to AWS well-architected best practices? Well, being customer obsessed, in addition to just working backwards from the outcomes your customers are trying to achieve, you also sometimes need to communicate not just what your customer, what you think they would like to hear, but what they need to hear based on your expertise to be successful. So that's something that could pop up. Now, when you're working through those STAR-based questions, you want to identify a situation, a task, an action, and a result. And when you answer, you specifically want to say what you did. So make sure you say, I did this, I led that, I drove this outcome, and you structure it in that situation. You lay the situation out, talk about the task that you did, the actions that you achieved, and then the results that you were able to deliver. All right. Now let's go on to invent and simplify. So for invent and simplify, this says leaders expect and require innovation and invention for their teams and always find ways to simplify. So a common question you may get would be, tell me a time where you solved a complex problem with a simple solution. Now, as we go over these leadership principles, one other tip I want to give you as you prepare for your AWS solution architect interview is that you want to have your scenarios all laid out. So, I would say you probably want to have between at least 6 scenarios that you can figure out how to align to these questions so that you're just not sitting there like a deer in the headlights, like, let me think of one. Yeah, you want to have these good to go. And then when they ask you these questions, you want to just be able to roll right into it. Now, the other thing I would tell you is you're not going to know specifically what Amazon leadership principle your interviewer is asking you. They're not going to say, I'm going to ask you a customer obsession question, or I'm going to ask you an invent and simplify question. But by watching this video, you'll be able to listen to the question, and then in your mind, you'll be like, oh, okay, yeah, that must be an invent and simplify. Because there's certain formats that fall under certain categories. So yeah, that's invent and simplify. Now, getting back to another one, learn and be curious. So for learn and be curious, leaders are never done learning. They always seek to improve themselves. They are curious about new possibilities and act to explore them. Now, a question you may get in your interview that aligns to learn and be curious would be, for example, tell me a time when you worked on a project where the skills that you were bringing to the table were not enough to solve that challenge. Walk me through what you did to get from not knowing how to initially solve the problem to being able to solve that problem. Take me from end to end. Now, you would think on the surface that if your interviewer is asking you about a time where you didn't have the skills to be able to solve the problem, that would be kind of a bad thing against you. Actually, it's not, because this is your opportunity to exercise your learn and be curious leadership principle. And the way you successfully navigate this question is you don't just simply say, I didn't know how to do that and I had to go ask somebody else to do it for me. You want to show that you literally rolled up your sleeves, right? You read the books, you searched the internet, you read the blogs, like you did the prototype to be able to build those skills that would ultimately drive to the outcome in that scenario that achieved your client or your customer's outcome. If you can paint that picture, you can successfully navigate the learn and be curious Amazon leadership principle. All right, let's go to think big. Now, think big is thinking small is a self-fulfilling prophecy. Leaders create and communicate a bold direction that inspires results. They think differently and look around corners for ways to serve customers. So let's see, a question that you could get for think big could be, let's say you were facing a problem and the status quo way of thinking or the ideas that either you or the team that you were on that were bringing to the table was not enough to address this problem. Walk me through how you had to change your thinking and elevate it to be able to get through this problem. So it's basically thinking big, which is going outside of the box from the day to day and choosing something daring or something that was perceived to maybe not be a viable option because it was too complicated or the company had never done it before. A scenario where you stretched yourself beyond your own means and maybe even above the team you were on to be able to deliver those results. That would be a great way for you to set up a scenario to show that you think big. Now, another one is bias for action. So that's speed matters in business. Many decisions and actions are reversible and do not need extensive study. We value calculated risk taking. So a question you might get for bias for action is, you are up under a tight deadline. You are dealing with a certain level of ambiguity. Let's say you only know 60 to 70% of the details before you can move forward. Walk me through how you navigated that ambiguity and how you chose to press forward so you can meet the deadline on a project. So this talks about bias for action in terms of being able to demonstrate that you are comfortable dealing with ambiguity, because at Amazon, in many fast-paced companies, you're not always going to have all the details, and you're also a lot of times going to be under a time crunch. So can you take the details that you have, be able to move fast, and use a good sense of judgment to be able to deliver on the business outcomes? If you can articulate this in your answers to these bias or action questions, you are absolutely going to nail this part of your Amazon Web Services Solution Architect interview. Now, let's go back over to the Amazon leadership principle, dive deep. This is a very important one for a solution architect, because as a solutions architect at AWS, part of the role is diving deep. So leaders operate at all levels. They stay connected to the details, audit frequently, and are skeptical when metrics and anecdotes differ. No task is beneath them. So for dive deep, this is a little bit opposite of bias or action, because with dive deep, now you feel as though you do need more information, because if you move forward with a limited amount of information and a mistake is made, it would be very difficult to reverse that unintended outcome. So you're going to choose to slow down a little bit for the sake of diving deep. And a question you could potentially get for this would be, tell me a time when you ran up against a complex problem and you did not have an immediate solution. Let me know the actions and the behaviors that you had to take to solve that problem. And this is where it sets you up to be able to flex that dive deep muscle. You could be doing research, you could be doing prototyping, you could be interviewing a key stakeholder. It's literally you going to a deeper level to look beyond the surface, because somebody else might have looked at the surface of the problem up here, but no, you as an AWS solution architect, you all the way down here to the 300, 400 level. It could be a scenario where you could talk about how you troubleshot something, how somebody was looking at something on your team, they couldn't figure it out, so they escalated it to you, and then you could really lean on what the areas of wherever your expertise is in this scenario to demonstrate how you dove deep. Another Amazon leadership principle I wanted to talk to you about is earn trust. For earned trust, leaders listen attentively, speak candidly, and treat others respectfully. They are vocally self-critical, even when doing so is awkward or embarrassing. Now, a lot of times where earned trust comes up, earned trust is so important that your interviewer may be looking for earned trust all throughout your interview, right? So it could be all types of details and nuances to your responses where you have the opportunity to show that you were able to earn the trust of your team or your customers in your scenario. Where the things start to fall apart is where if you give an example where it demonstrates that you didn't earn trust, or you gave an example where you cut a corner or you swept something under the rug, if that's obvious, then you would really get dinged negatively on the earn trust element here. And let's see here. I think that really covers most of the Amazon leadership principles that I wanted to talk about. Something else that I'll say here before we wrap up is, in addition to these Amazon leadership principles, there's something else that will be evaluated for you going up for the AWS Solution Architect position, and that's going to be domain depth and technical breadth. So let's say, for example, you're coming in as a specialist solution architect. You may have a segment within your interview that could be combined with one of the Amazon leadership principles. So let's say there's dive deep, and then in addition to dive deep, there's a domain depth element as well. So with the specialist track, let's say your specialty was database and you were coming in as a specialist database solution architect. If your interviewer wanted to test you on domain depth, now we're going to be hitting you deep with database related questions, most likely at the 300 level and 400 level. And if that doesn't make sense, think about 100 as kind of like intro, 200 intermediate, 300 is starting to get advanced, 400 is starting to get real advanced. So when we talk about domain depth, that's your specialty, which would be indicated based a lot of times on your resume or either for the position you've were hired for. That's how you will be tested for the domain depth. And then there's another dimension would be technical breadth. So let's say you're not coming in as a specialist solution architect, but you're just coming in more so as like a generalist solution architect. With a generalist solution architect, now it's going to be advantageous for you to be able to know a whole lot about a lot of things, probably at the 200 level, and then for things you specialize in, at least around the 300 level. 400 level, is an added bonus. And you'll be asked a wide variety of questions that could be technical in nature around a broad technical breadth set. So you could be asked security questions, database, containers, serverless, just to kind of see where you fall. And the idea is not to answer everything, at the 400 level, but just for your interviewer to get a sense, okay, what kind of technical breadth do you have on that interview? So if you do everything that I've outlined here, study these Amazon leadership principles, I'm going to put a link to the entire list below. And then before you go, you're also going to watch this video right here, which will complement the video that you've already watched very nicely. This should set you up to be well prepared for your AWS Solution Architect interview. If you have any questions, always pop those in the comments below, and I'll be glad to answer those. And I'll see you in the next video.